The first letter arrived on a quiet Tuesday morning. Folded neatly, no stamp, no handwriting, no return address, just one line on the front, for Daniel. Daniel Hale stared at it for several seconds. Nobody called him Daniel, not since childhood. Everyone used Dan. Even he'd forgotten how his own name sounded spoken aloud. And yet, there it was. A name that felt like a whisper from his past. Inside, the paper was clean, smooth, almost too smooth. And in the center, typed in perfect black ink, just one sentence. At 4:17 p.m., the lights will go out. Nothing more. Dan laughed to himself, nerves disguised as humor, and dropped it on the kitchen table. Probably a prank. Probably a mistake. Probably nothing. He didn't know yet that nothing was about to change everything. 4:10 p.m. 7 minutes before, Dan sat at his desk at the auto shop, the strange feeling in his stomach refusing to quiet down. The letter had followed him all day, clinging to the edges of his thoughts like a shadow. He kept glancing at the clock. 4. 11 p.m. 4:12 p.m. He shook his head. "Why am I even thinking about this?" he muttered. "It's just paper." 4:16 p.m. The second hand clicked forward with a soft tick. 4:17 p.m. And then everything went dark. The lights snapped off with a pop. The buzzing machine stilled. The radio died mid-sentence. The entire shop fell into stunned silence. Someone cursed. Someone else laughed nervously. But Dan didn't move. His stomach dropped through the floor. The letter. The impossible letter. He drove home with shaking hands. It was waiting for him on the welcome mat. No knock. No sound. No witnesses. Just another envelope with the same typed name. For Daniel. This time, his breath caught before he even touched it. He tore it open with trembling fingers. "Tomorrow at 9:14 a.m., the man in the red scarf will ask you for help. Say yes." Dan stared at the sentence so long his eyes began to burn. Who was writing these? How were they doing this? And why him? All night he tossed and turned with the letter lying on his dresser like a loaded weapon. 9:14 a.m. Dan counted every second as the morning crept forward. 9:10, 9:12, 9:13. He started to believe maybe this was the moment the universe would stop playing strange games. Then the shop door swung open. A man stepped inside, mid-40s, gaunt, tired-looking, with a weathered red scarf wrapped around his neck. He glanced around uncertainly before approaching the counter. Excuse me," he said. "My car broke down a few streets away. Could you help me?" Dan swallowed hard. There it was. The sentence from the letter. Word for word. He didn't know whether to scream or run. But the letter had said, "Say yes." So he did. They walked to the man's old blue sedan together. It had stalled at a dangerous intersection where cars sped by with little warning. While Dan worked on the engine, the man suddenly gasped. "Oh God, hey, watch out!" Dan's head jerked up, just as a delivery truck swerved wildly into the lane, horn blaring. If Daniel had been standing upright, if he hadn't been crouched low working on the engine, he would have been hit. He would have died. The man in the red scarf grabbed his arm. "You okay?" Dan nodded shakily. But his mind was screaming. Whoever was sending the letters was protecting him. He arrived home that night, afraid to look at his doorstep. But the envelope was already there. His hands felt numb as he opened it. "At 7:52 tonight, you must be at the old bridge. Bring no one." Dan stared at the message. Why the old bridge? Why him? Why the future? The sky outside darkened as the minute approached. He didn't know if he was walking into a trap or a revelation. But something deep inside, a quiet instinct, told him he had to go. Cold wind swept across the water as Dan stepped onto the old wooden boards. The night was still, too still. 7:51. 7:51. 52 exactly. A faint crunch of gravel sounded behind him. Elderly woman emerged from the shadows. Her clothing was simple, but her eyes held centuries. "You came," she said softly. Dan backed up. "Who are you? Are you the one sending the letters?" She nodded. Yes and no. Her voice trembled with emotion. "I've watched you for a long time, Daniel. Longer than you can imagine." Dan swallowed hard. "Why me?" She stepped closer, her expression gentle but impossibly sad. "Because you saved my life." Dan blinked. What? I've never seen you before." "You have," she whispered. "Just not yet." She pointed to the water. "Tomorrow night, a woman will fall from this bridge. Everyone else will drive by. Everyone else will wait for someone else to act. But you will jump." She smiled softly. "And you will save her." Dan felt his chest tighten. "Why tell me this?" "Because I am that woman." The world seemed to tilt. "But you are old." "Yes." "Because you save me tomorrow. And I've spent my whole life making sure you live long enough to do it." Tears filled her eyes. "I had to protect the man who gave me the rest of my life." Dan stood frozen, breath shaking, heart pounding. She reached out and touched his hand gently. "Tomorrow, I will need you. And now you understand why you must be there." Then she stepped back, then vanished into the darkness. The next evening, Dan returned to the bridge before the sun had fully set. He leaned on the railing, every sense alert, and then he heard it. A scream, a splash. Without hesitation, he leapt over the side. Cold water swallowed him, burning his lungs as he fought toward the struggling figure. When he reached her, he grabbed her arm and kicked toward the surface. The current tried to drag them down, but Dan pushed with everything he had. When they finally reached the shore, the woman collapsed into his arms, coughing violently. She was young, terrified, alive, and she looked at him with wide, grateful eyes. "Thank you," she whispered. "You saved me." Dan held her tighter, feeling the weight of destiny settle into place like a completed puzzle. The next morning, one last envelope lay at his door. "Thank you, Daniel. Live well. A life you saved. No more predictions, no more warnings, no more letters. Just the quiet understanding that his life and someone else's had been forever changed." The story continues. If you enjoyed part 1, comment, like, share, and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss part 2. See you soon, and thanks for watching.